Hello and welcome to the launch of the Global Tech Ecosystem Index 2025. This is a new benchmarking of 289 tech ecosystems around the world from Dealroom. We have crunched the numbers on everything from venture capital to enterprise value, patents, university spinouts to bring a fully rounded indexing of tech ecosystems and where they're competitive, which ones you should be looking at, and where they can also be doing better to kind of accelerate their ecosystems. So we're going to do a little bit of a sneak preview of some of the findings, explain some of the things we were thinking about. I'm with Felix and Peter from Dealroom as well, and we'll get into it. Yeah, so maybe actually a bit about us first. So Dealroom, we map the world's tech ecosystems. It's the source of record on startups, investment, venture capital, innovation. And we've been working for many years with governments around the world to help them understand their startup ecosystems, their tech ecosystems. And really this has built, this work is the culmination of a lot of that work.
Well, thank you so much, Orla, for this wonderful intro. I'm Felix. I'm a research specialist here at Dealroom, and today we're launching the Global Tech Ecosystem Index, and I just wanted to give you a little overview of our thinking, what we've included, how it works, and so you understand what we're actually providing today. Just overall, it's an index of 289 cities across 69 countries. So we really have a wide coverage, much larger than the last iteration of this, which we had done in 2022. And we look at these cities across three main categories. The main one being global champions, which shows the absolute biggest ecosystems. The second one being density leaders, where we focus on per capita values to showcase really dense and sort of ecosystems that punch above their weight. And lastly, the rising stars, where we put the focus on emerging and fastest growing ecosystems to also show other markets than just the usual suspects you might have in mind. And I think Peter sort of wants to tell you a little bit about why we're doing this today and the way that we think about this index overall.
Yeah. So I think why now, always important. The world is changing really fast, and also geopolitical changes are happening a lot. So having a technical tech ecosystem and tech sovereignty is really important. So that's, I think, important to have this index to see how you're performing as a country or region or city, but also have an overall performance from the overall competitiveness of your city. And I think also cities and regions are becoming more data-driven to convince internal and external stakeholders about short-term and long-term tech ecosystem policies. So it's good to have then a benchmark and an overview.
Yeah, and a little bit about why this matters very briefly. So global tech ecosystems are now worth a combined $39 trillion. So this is just VC-backed companies founded since 1990. And that's a 13x increase in the last decade. So these are not just companies that are like a fringe part of an economy. They are central to economies around the world. They are fast-growing. Both in value creation, but also in job creation. And so they're really becoming the beating heart of the most successful, competitive economies of all kinds. So really it's becoming more of a focus of all economic strategy, industrial strategy, rather than just having a little bit of policy about startups here and there. And yeah, this is just a little snapshot of the most valuable companies in the world. 7 of the top 11 are venture backed. So these are again we're not just talking about small startups of a few people, but the biggest companies in the world, and this sort of compounds and snowballs as well.
So now that we sort of set the stage for what the aspiration is and why you should actually care about the startups in your ecosystem, I just want to say that today we are not just launching a ranking. We're not just giving you a number that you can sort of celebrate with, which we will obviously also do, but we are more interested in providing an index, a comprehensive overview, a way where you can actually explore how your cities are performing and also compare that to other places.
And yeah, maybe to jump in, like as I mentioned before, this is a culmination of work that we've been doing for years, working with cities and regions and countries. But it was also really important for us to make sure that this was a transparent index. So we want to share the workings, show exactly what we've done, how we've weighted it, and also then the underlying data so that people can explore it themselves. So you can read more about this in all of in the report and see exactly why people are ranking where they are, and happy to have discussions with you if you want to challenge us about it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's sort of the idea why we're really open sourcing this, so to speak. And we'll go into detail what specific metrics go into each of the categories soon. But I just wanted to really put this out there that we are looking at a bunch of different dimensions, and then they're also weighted differently. But as Orla said, you can all explore this in much more detail in the material that we'll share together with this launch. So let's dive right into it, talk a little bit about results, talk a little bit about what you're probably most interested in. So for the first category, the global champions, we're emphasizing some metrics you're probably thinking about. That is venture capital investment, that is the enterprise value that's being created, which Orla was already sort of showing with the biggest companies, but also the growth, because here we wanted to surface not just very large ecosystems, but also large and growing ecosystems. So this was something that is important to us. And besides that, we're also looking at unicorns, which have always been a good anchor to think about the larger ecosystem and not just sort of individual companies. And at the universities and patent sort of the academic and intellectual output a city creates as well. So quite interesting. Sort of maybe you guys want to comment on a few placements that you find surprising. I mean, what is the least surprising? Probably is the Bay Area, since we all know it is the biggest in the world by a good margin.
Yeah, exactly. I think maybe not as surprising for some people. There's some familiar names at the top. So Bay Area in California is number one. And has been for a long time. They've had it's the home of Silicon Valley and of this kind of venture-backed entrepreneurship, and also some other big names there: New York City, Boston. Kind of interesting though that we've got Paris above London in the ranking as the top-ranked global champion city in Europe, and that's really to the bit you mentioned about momentum. So London is still in some ways a bigger ecosystem, but Paris has been really catching up. So that sort of momentum factor means that for this year anyway, Paris is above London, which is interesting.
And maybe also to see Austin in America, North America, growing really fast as a hub. Super interesting to see Tel Aviv in the Middle East a little bit. And also Stockholm and München, for example, are like really rising ecosystems. So cities with a lot of momentum.
Yeah, and now I maybe want to take a short minute to just dive a little bit deeper and explain how this index works, because what we were interested in is all-round ecosystem performance. So we're not just I don't know, if you have a lot of patents or you have a lot of alumni founders, like one metric should not skew your placement in this rank, in this index. So what we did is we're using a percentile rank. So based on sort of where you're placed in each of the categories, we give you a certain number of points, which also means that sort of singular strengths is not you don't really benefit from those that much, but you really have to be a well-rounded ecosystem in all dimensions that we look at. But that's why we also obviously have the different categories, so we can look at different dimensions of importance. And maybe we can exemplify that really quickly with an example for the global champions here for Boston, where on the right you can see all the metrics that are playing into our index here. And as we said, you can also all explore this in the online platform that we're launching together with this release. To really see how your city may compare, and the numbers that we have for the cities you're interested in.
Maybe to preempt a question that people will have. So in terms of what we mean by Boston, so we take the metro area of any given city. So this will include Cambridge, Massachusetts, and other surrounding areas of Boston, because we see this as one functional ecosystem. And that's the case for all the other cities in the ranking as well. But yeah, Boston, a really nice example, a very varied ecosystem. So there's a lot of strength in life science there. So some of the biggest companies are in pharma and life science, but actually quite varied within that as well. So we've got HubSpot as well, coming out of Boston, DraftKings, the sort of fantasy football league company, and also some companies that have moved into Boston that we also count. So Sneak, which is a cybersecurity company that relocated into Boston because it clearly saw the strength of the ecosystem there.
Yeah, totally. So let's maybe sort of, now that you understand generally how we think about this, briefly talk about the two other categories as well, and maybe the differences that are to be seen here. So the second one we call the density leaders, which means we look at the per capita values, so sort of relative numbers here, because we also want to obviously be able to surface the smaller ecosystems, like you might already see it here, Cambridge in the UK, which may not be that big in absolute size, but it really has large output when you look at how small Cambridge really is. And again, we look at VC investment, we look at the enterprise value that's being created, but also at unicorns and the academic output that we're seeing in those ecosystems. And again, I don't know, just kind of want to give it to you, what you find interesting here, what sort of stands out.
The interesting thing here for me, I think you see some names coming back again, but the München, for example, with maybe a bit more with deep tech focus, Stockholm, of course, as well, again, but also Copenhagen and Amsterdam, for example, you see, and Zurich. So some really good cities to show that the density is a really important one as well, right?
Yeah, so these are the places that kind of punch above their weight, basically. So if you only look on a scale lens, you could end up overlooking some smaller places where there's some really exciting stuff going on. And there is a bit of I'd say one of the common denominators with some of these there's an academic grounding in a lot of these places. So, Cambridge in the UK, Munich as well, Oxford, Research Triangle in North Carolina. So these are, a lot of amazing innovation coming out of universities or that surrounding ecosystem. And to highlight Cambridge, which we pulled out here. So 2 universities in Cambridge, and a small city, but with an enterprise value of 187 billion that's been created. Arm being the first unicorn and very important for the ecosystem, but lots of other deep tech that's come out of there as well. So Continuum, a more recent quantum computing startup, and Darktrace as well, that's actually just been about to be relisted in the US, but also came out of Cambridge initially.
All right, and that brings us to the last category, which we call the rising stars, where we're really interested in the fastest growing and the emerging market tech ecosystems, so to speak, where we've taken a pure scale lens in the global champions, a per capita lens in the density leaders. Now we're looking at growth. And we've mainly focused here on enterprise value because that's really sort of the most, the best anchor metric for an ecosystem to see the value that's being created there. And then also obviously at unicorns. But interestingly, what we're doing in this category is we also correct for GDP per capita and the cost of living, which is something that helps us surface the ecosystems that are in emerging markets where your money actually goes a much longer way. So you got to make that adjustment to really make it comparable to the more industrialized countries. And that allows us to really put the lens on some more interesting places that you might not usually see in rankings like these.
Yeah, exactly. If you're going to be raising a Series A and you need to be paying some developers, then if you're paying them in the Bay Area, you need to add a 0 onto the end of compared to some of the places on this list. So it's not kind of fair to do a like for like in some places. But again, I think this gives us a really exciting list of places to explore.
Absolutely, very varied, I would say.
Yeah, and, we should have a look how those cities are performing in upcoming years, but those are the ones we should keep an eye on.
Yeah, exactly. So this is the most momentum driven metric. So probably we'll see some change in the coming years, but at least sort of very, very cool to see that, in this case, Lagos is topping the list. And really driven by extraordinary growth in an otherwise smaller economy, which is something that is really interesting and maybe what you should have a look at and good to explore as well.
Yeah, I think what we have also tried to show in the last few years is that really entrepreneurship can come from anywhere. It's not that long ago that it was sort of only in the Bay Area and a couple of places in the US, maybe a little bit in London, but it's even that, maybe only a decade ago. But really there are, global champions companies, unicorns, thoroughbreds that are generating hundreds of millions in revenue that are coming from all over the world. And this kind of exactly shows it in this ranking as well.
Great. So maybe we should talk a little bit about how we think about this whole index, how we think about startup ecosystems today, and what's sort of important going forward, what the game actually is.
Yeah, exactly. So why we show this picture where you see people running and we say like stay competitive and keep playing. With the tech ecosystem, it's not the same as building a startup. There's no finish line, right? So a tech ecosystem evolves. But you have hurdles and you need to make sure as a tech ecosystem that you stay competitive overall. So it's not only like the number of unicorns or how are we doing well with spin-outs. The all overall elements, all the drivers are important, right? So we look at this more as a momentum list. There's no finish line for a city. Like we're not going to sit tomorrow and, hey, well done, now we stop with tech ecosystem building. It evolves and they are complex systems that really need a long-term innovation flywheel, right? So founder factories that are, Skype is an example that generates a lot of more new startups, but also other companies that have spin-outs, for example, right? So that's really important to look at the lens of keep playing, adapting as an ecosystem, and look at like on the overall overview performance, like where are you lacking as a city and what are maybe the hurdles you need to tackle. So that's, I think, how we look at this index.
Yeah. And it's not zero sum as well, maybe to say, because it kind of looks a little bit like a ranking what we've put together, but we're not trying to say that, these should be competitive with each other. Actually, we're kind of long entrepreneurship and tech and innovation in general. And actually, that's why we kind of want to open up the data to help all of these places understand where they can be doing better to support startups and innovation, because it's also where amazing breakthroughs come that improve the world as well for everybody. So it's not zero sum.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, we just encourage you to not focus too much on the ranking, but actually to look beyond the one number and look at all the stuff that really composes your ecosystem. And in order to do that, we're also launching today a Dealroom data dashboard where you can explore everything that went into this index and much more. So we'll obviously share more details on that soon, but I already wanted to show a little overview of what we can do. So let me just bring it up. This is the index. We'll have obviously the global champions, the density leaders, and the rising stars, but also a load of other categories that you can explore that might be interesting to sort of see your city's performance. And as you can see in the champions ranking, we have all of the values that went into how we compute the points. But if you're interested in a specific comparison, say, for example, Paris wants to be compared to London and Los Angeles, you can do this. You can just select those three places, hit compare, and directly see all of the different values next to each other, look at a bunch of different ways to visualize the data. And I think this is really like an interesting tool for you to look beyond the surface and really explore what your ecosystem can do, maybe what you're lacking, where there can be some work done. And really interesting, something for us to launch today to give you more ability to explore what Dealroom can provide. Yeah,
very fun to play around with.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It should help a lot of stakeholders to compare and to learn from other ecosystems. So we are super exciting about the report and the index, and especially the live and interactive dashboard that will be live today as well. But also join our ecosystem. We are helping more than 120 tech ecosystems around the world with Dealroom.
They're all here. Lots of
all here. Some of them,
Lots of the governments we already work with.
Yeah, and if you have any questions about your own performance or ecosystem, we can do an own assessment and talk to you. So, look forward that people play around with the dashboard.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a lot of fun with everything we launched today. And of course, just reach out for questions. We're always here and happy to have a conversation.
Thanks.